Put your faith in the light.
I have a question for God. Why?
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade. And well guys, finally we have alpha. We can test stuff for ourselves. We can check out the interaction of all these talents for Retribution Paladins. So I recently wanted to do that, but the problem is a lot of the things are broken, so I can't actually test any of the interactions I wanted to. So basically I can theorize some things working, you know. I theorized a really nice judgment focused build because recently they did some changes to the Retribution Paladin tree. They moved things around and they actually made some of these judgment talents actually worth using, you know. You can theorize some nice builds with them. And they also moved around some stuff and they removed some things, you know. There's some of the removed stuff that is really sad. For example, they removed the long arm of the law from the Retribution Paladin tree. That was a talent that allowed us to move 20% faster after we threw a judgment. That was really nice because it was in combat movement speed and it was like basically on demand because whenever you threw a judgment, oh yeah, I'm going to move fast now. It was really nice, especially for PvEers because we can sometimes we lack mobility to like catch up to our target or to move out of mechanics and all that stuff. That extra 20% bump was really nice. For PvPers, they did give them a replacement in the consecration build, you know, with Sanctified Rat. So this is the replacement for PvPers. When you're inside your consecration, you can't be slowed under 80%. So that basically makes us like semi-decay. The decays have that like you can't be slow thing. Now we have the same thing, but only when we're in consecration. So I guess that's something for PvPers. But for PvEers, we don't have anything. We don't have a replacement for long arm of the law, you know. So I guess I hope they give us something in the general Paladin tree when they rework it, because they said they are going to rework it. So I hope they get rid of all these horse talents because we have 3 talents for horse to make it useful. That's not good. That's really, really bad. It's so many wasted talents. Anyways, now let's talk about the stuff that actually changed on the Retribution Paladin tree. So this happened like 2 days ago, so I'm kind of late to the party. Most of you guys probably already know the changes here, but I'm going to just make a small recap. So they moved the execution sentence to the bottom part and made it a capstone talent. Well, it's upgrades. So we still have executioner's will. That's the extension of execution sentence. You can extend it up to 8 seconds with Templar's verdicts. That means we get juicy and powerful execution sentences in single target. The thing they added is this executioner's wrath. Now when you use this, your execution sentence has a AoE component. Well, not AoE, like a cleave component. So any damage you do to your main target that's getting the execution sentence will do 15% of that in a small AoE. That's 8 yards. 8 yards is pretty small, you know. So if for whatever reason your tank kites and your main target moves away from the AoE clump, well, there goes your cleave damage, you know. I'm kind of biased here because I really hate execution sentence as a spell. I really hated to use it in the Shadowlands when you had to use the 1-minute build, but I guess this is a good option for all those people that like to play with execution sentence, you know. So now let's move to the next change. They gave us Empyrean Endowment. This is a new capstone talent that's basically the Necrolord Covenant ability disguised, you know. And instead of having to use a global cooldown to get the effect, now we just use have it passively after we use a judgment every 30 seconds. So you throw your judgment and you get the Empyrean Endowment, where your next Templar's Verdict will just automatically proc your Divine Storm. That does 25% increased damage. Pretty nice capstone talent, I think. It goes well with the build that I'm going to talk about in a bit, because it works around judgment, you know. After that, we still have Final Verdict here. That's a good thing. Final Reckoning. Final Reckoning is a really good stuff for the 1-minute build. It works for either in combination with Execution Sentence, or you can ignore Execution Sentence and still take Final Reckoning because it's really nice to have that extra uncapped AoE, you know. And after that, they moved some stuff here. For example, Final Verdict is no longer a capstone talent, and now it's like they moved it 1 slot up, and instead of making Final Verdict a capstone, they made Vanguard's Momentum the capstone talent. So Vanguard's Momentum is kind of a lackluster capstone talent. I don't think many people are going to take it. It's a pretty crappy talent, you know. that does give you some nice extra holy damage, you know, but you have to go into for AoE especially, you have to go into Final Verdict to take it. So that means you're skipping out on a lot of AoE potential for taking this extra damage, you know. So I don't think it's good in that place. They probably have to move it around in a future build. Anyways, guys, those are the changes that happened to the Retribution Paladin trees. Now let's go to that build that I wanted to talk about, the Judgment heavy build that does some sustained AoE. It's well, I'm going to talk about it in a second. First, let's go to the Wowhead talent calculator. Okay, guys, here we are at the Wowhead calculator. So this is the build I wanted to showcase. So guys, from this part onwards, it's mostly theory crafting on the build, you know. I tried to use this build in the alpha, but the problem is a lot of the interactions were kind of broken or didn't work. So basically, take it with a grain of salt from this point onwards. But it's a really nice build that I'm theorizing. It has some potential. It has sustained damage. It also has a 1 minute damage burst, and it has a heavy 2 minute damage burst window. So those are the interactions with this build. So let's talk about what talents I'm picking. So first row, Blade of Justice. Second row, Divine Storm for that AoE, Art of War to get procs from Blade of Justice. Then we're taking Timely Judgment to reduce the cooldown of it. Improved Crusader Strike to have 2 charges. Then we take Holy Blade to get 1 additional Holy Power from our Blade of Justice. After that, we're taking Zeal, taking Shield of Vengeance, and Blade of Wrath. After that, we're taking Hyler's Judgment because it just makes it do more damage. We're still going to take the Consecration package on this build because it's nice sustained damage, and having 2 consecrations instead of 1 is really good. This talent specifically makes it so when we Divine Storm, Consecration does extra damage. After that, we take Wake of Ashes because it meshes really good with this build, and we take Consecrated Blade. This is the talent that gives us an extra consecration whenever we use a Blade of Justice with an Art of War procs. Really strong in sustaining damage situations. After that, we take Seal of Wrath. So this is one of the Judgment package talents. So whenever you Judgment, you have a 25% chance to cast it again. This Judgment sadly doesn't give you an extra holy power, but it's a pretty decent option and also works and interacts with Divine Toll. Let's go to the next row. So Boundless Judgment, another one of the Judgment package talents. This one also interacts with Divine Toll, and sadly it doesn't generate you an extra holy power, so the bounce doesn't generate you, but it does extra damage, and since it interacts with Divine Toll, it's pretty nice to have because that's a really big burst 1 minute window. After that, we have Sanctification. Since we're using the Consecration package and we have 2 consecrations, this is going to generate us a lot of holy power just passively when we can get targets inside of our consecration. After that, we have Ashes to Dust. Since we're using the Seraphim package, getting resets of our Wake of Ashes is really nice. We're also going to be using Crusade instead of normal wings because Haste synergizes better with this build in terms of proccing more Seraphims because of Haste, and we also proc more ticks of our Consecration for generation of Holy Power with Sanctification. We also get our cooldown back of Judgment faster with more Haste. It also gives us more damage because Crusade gives you 30% damage instead of the 20% of normal wings. After that, we're taking Imperial Power, just a nice proc. After we use our Crusader Strike, we have a 15% chance to get a free Divine Storm that deals 25% increased damage. After that, we take Healing Hands just for the extra healing utility, and we take Tempest of the Lightbringer because this is a AoE build. Tempest of the Lightbringer gives us nice uncapped AoE damage on our Divine Storms. After that, we're going to be taking Divine Toll because a lot of the interactions of Judgments work with Divine Toll. It's a really powerful 1 minute burst cooldown. On the next row, we're going to take Ashes to Ashes because, well, we're taking the Seraphim Way, so this gives us nice extra sustained damage when we don't have cooldowns. We take Divine Resonance because, well, also the Judgments from Divine Resonance interact with Boundless Judgment and also Seal of Wrath procs, so it's a really nice thing. It also generates us more Holy Power so we can spam our main abilities. Then we take Virtuous Command mostly so we can take Final Reckoning. Virtuous Command works in either AoE and single target scenarios. It's always going to be on since we are throwing Judgments all the time. This is basically 99% of the time on. After that, on the last row, we take 2 capstone talents. The first one is Final Reckoning. It's always nice to have that Final Reckoning to burst our targets down on a 1-minute cooldown. Synergizes really well with Divine Toll because Divine Toll feeds a lot of holy fire to the 8-second window of Final Reckoning. After that, we're taking Empyrean Endowment. This is one of the new capstone talents they made on the last build. Basically the Necrolord ability, but on a passive effect. Whenever we throw a judgment, every 30 seconds, our next Templar's Verdict will automatically trigger our Divine Storm. This gives us a nice cleavish extra damage. Also, the Divine Storm deals extra 25% extra damage. So we have two sources of buffed Divine Storms. The first one is Empyrean Endowment, and then we also have Empyrean Power. Both are really strong, especially because multiplicative damage cooldowns stack better. So the multiplicative damage of those two talents stacks with Final Reckoning, and it also stacks with the Crusade 30% extra damage. So basically that's the build, guys. This build also has huge interactions with the General Paladin tree in the way of Mad Paragon and Sanctified Rat. So the idea with this judgment heavy build is that you use Mad Paragon and your Hammer of Wrath and judgments can extend the duration of your wings. This means, for example, if you use Divine Toll, then all those judgments from the Divine Toll are actually increasing the duration of your crusade, which is going to give you huge amounts of damage because you not only have those Divine Toll judgments, you also have your normal judgment, you have the bounce judgments from Boundless Judgment, and you have the Seal of Wrath extra casts, you know. So there's a lot of extensions that can have with Mad Paragon. Sadly, at the moment it's bugged. Currently it only increases the duration of your wings from Hammer of Wraths, and it doesn't work with judgments. But if they fix it in a future build and we can test that out, that can be huge value for the 2-minute wings casts, you know. Other talent that interacts with this build is Sanctified Rat. Whenever you throw a judgment, when you have wings up, it gives you 2 holy power instead of 1. This is huge because this means a lot of holy power generation when we are on our main damage cooldown. Currently, it's also bugged in the alpha. I tried to use this with Crusade, it doesn't work, but it does work with normal wings. I'm hoping they fix that and make it work with Crusade, so this build can be like a bit more appealing, you know, because generating so much holy power in your crusade window on top of the haste, it's just going to be a crazy spam fiesta. So guys, that's my idea of a heavy judgment build. This is mostly focused on Mythic Plus dungeons. This is not a single target build, like I said at the start, and it's mostly theory crafting, you know. I'm hoping a lot of these interactions that I said of judgment stuff actually work in the future. So a lot of stuff is bugged in the alpha after they did the changes to the Retribution Paladins. I tried also to test, for example, the Executioner's Rat build, like the extra damage from your execution sentence on AoE targets, but it doesn't work. It's also bugged, so a lot of theory crafting has to happen, and we can't actually test it at the moment. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this build. Tell me in the comments if you like it or if you don't. And well, if you enjoyed my content, subscribe to the channel and like the video, guys. Thanks for watching, everyone.